Chelsea fans, welcome back to Talking Chelsea. Welcome back to your Chelsea news. In today's video, we're talking about a dilemma between Chelsea and Liam Delap that needs to be solved. Not only that, but Chelsea have decided the futures of Christopher Nkunku, Joao Felix, Benoit Badiashile and Trevor Chalobah. Not only that, but Chelsea are linked with a new centre-back, and there's rumours that Manchester United are after Nicolas Jackson. Now, of course, I'll be giving my own thoughts and opinions on everything that's been reported, but more importantly, I want to know what you guys think down below in the comments. And before we get into the video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe if you are a Chelsea fan who enjoys Chelsea content. We're on the road to 10k by the end of 2025. Kicking things off, Kieran Gill has reported that Chelsea can make Trevor Chalobah and Benoit Badiashile available if interest is shown. Now, we kind of knew that these two names were going to be on the list of the summer outgoings this summer, so we kind of knew that. The disappointing thing about it for me is Trevor Chalobah shouldn't be on that list. Now, I like the way it says if interest is shown. We know that Chalobah is going to generate interest, which means Chelsea are more than likely going to try and sell him because he is a profitable player. He is a Cobham graduate at the end of the day. And it just doesn't sit right with me. The way that Trevor Chalobah has been treated by this club, obviously in the last 6 months, he's been treated incredibly well. He's played a lot of games, come to save us essentially, missing out on an FA Cup win with Crystal Palace, but winning the Conference League and securing Champions League football with the club that he loves and grew up with. It's kind of like a nice ending, but that does not excuse the treatment of Chelsea and Chalobah last summer at the start of this season, where they were trying to put him up for sale, trying to sell him for any sort of profit that they could. They'd end up loaning him out to Crystal Palace so he could get some game time, because they basically said, we want to get rid of you. If no one comes in, then we're not, you ain't going to play, you're not part of the plans. To then realise that we massively missed him with all the injuries and, not having that experience in the back line, to recall him in January, while sending people like Vega out on loan as well, and other members of the squad that kind of depleted our squad when we massively needed them, like Joao Felix and others as well. It was just a bit of a kick in the teeth for Chelsea fans, because we've been screaming about how good Trevor Chalobah is. He's not perfect. I'm not saying that he's a perfect player, but he has the experience. He's won the Champions League, the Super Cup, the Club World Cup. He's won big trophies, and he's earned the right to be at Stamford Bridge. And I just don't understand why you would want to sell a player of his calibre. If he's not going to be in the starting 11, fine. He will be an amazing squad player to come in and fill the void. We've used him and utilised him so well this season when we've had him in a Chelsea shirt. And he's had some incredible performances, just like last year. He was injured for a big spell. He came back and he was pivotal. Absolutely pivotal in Pochettino's back line when it comes to that 6-game run-in that secured us European football. Yes, we got knocked down to the Conference League because United won the FA Cup. But regardless, Chalobah has always been a key player in that back line when he's been called upon, under Tuchel, under Lampard, maybe some much after Potter, but in Pochettino for a small spell, and now under Maresca in the second half of the season. So I'm just hoping that Chelsea board, the Chelsea owners, look at this and go, we're going to keep Chalobah, rather than just seeing him as a massive plus in terms of profit on a spreadsheet. And that's just me personally. I'd love to know your thoughts about Trevor Chalobah down below. When it comes to Benoit Badiashile, I'm a bit more open-minded, because look, I hold my hands, I've been very public, and I'm not Benoit Badiashile's biggest fan. You can go back and watch the channel throughout this season. I'm just not a fan about Badiashile. However, I'm also very fair. I'm negative when needed to be, and I give credit where it's due. Benoit Badiashile's second half of the season has been not flawless, but it's been a very good second half of the season for him. I was under the impression that after his injury, he was just never the same player, constantly full of mistakes. And I didn't want to see him in that back line. Now, yes, he played a lot of time in the Conference League and he played well. He had a couple of shaky games, but overall he played very well. Had a good campaign, essentially, which I think did wonders for his confidence, because when he come on as a substitute throughout this season in the Premier League, he slotted right in, and it's almost like Colwell was still on the pitch, in terms of performance. You didn't know he was there. He was just doing his job. A couple of the performances that kind of hit my head straight away is the Liverpool game. He slotted in. He was fantastic against Liverpool. There's been a couple of others as well, to mention and highlight. He's been a very good player in the second half of the season, but he was so incredibly poor in the first half of the season. And then, look, he was part of a defence that conceded the most Premier League goals in our history, with him and Disasi mainly being the centre-backs. Yeah, I know Disasi was played the right back at times as well. So it's just a bit of a weird one for me, because, like I said, I'm not his fan, but I'm kind of on the fence of, like, if we keep him, cool. I think he can be a very valuable squad player, especially on that left-hand side, where we've got the likes of Levi Colwell. It's good cover for him. But at the same time, if we can make money off him, cash in while we can. I'm more than happy either way, really, with Badiashile. Going from a position where I just couldn't stand the guy, nothing personal, but just the way he played football, I wanted him out of the club, to now at the end of the season reviewing the whole season and the second half of how he's improved. I'm kind of like, well, actually, he's not big. I don't think he's going to be starting 11 Chelsea standard. I don't think he'll get to that level, unfortunately. And again, happy to be proven wrong. But I'm nowhere near as much as I was get him out as I have been at the start of the season, first half of the season. So I'm kind of on the fence. I'll be like, cool, if we get rid of him, sweet, as long as we make money. If we keep him, I think he has his place as a squad rotation player. So, that's just my thoughts. I'm curious to know yours down below about Benoit Badiashile and Trevor Chalobah being offered if interest is shown. Alex Crook has reported that Tottenham are showing interest in signing Christopher Nkunku from Chelsea. He is open to staying in the Premier League. We know that Christopher Nkunku is on his way out this summer. The writing's been on the wall since January when we tried to ship him off to Bayern Munich, but we slapped on January transfer window tax and they said, no thank you. He's barely played. We're not paying 80 million euros for Christopher Nkunku. We'll come back in the summer. Now, it's open book right now. I think Christopher Nkunku's agent is going to be working overtime to get him a deal away from Stamford Bridge. I feel like he's burnt the bridges at Stamford Bridge, which is quite, no pun intended. But look, he's wanted to go since January. We can see in his body language. We can see with the sort of performances he's putting in. It's just not worked out for him at Chelsea, which does make me really sad because when we bought him, I was like, yo, Nkunku is one of my favourite players. He is class. I loved watching him in the Bundesliga. I'm going to be brutally honest. I didn't watch every minute of every game that he played, but I watched quite a lot more of the Bundesliga games because he was a player that excited me. And when we signed him, I was like, I can't believe this. This is awesome. He's on the cusp of being an absolutely world-class player, and he's had incredible seasons, won a lot of individual awards in the Bundesliga. We then saw him in pre-season, and him and Jackson looked like they were going to tear up the Premier League in pre-season until he got injured. And it was kind of like, of course he did. Of course he got injured. Not his fault, but it's just the Chelsea luck, I suppose. And he's never really looked the same since coming back. He had a bit of a purple patch under Pochettino when he come back from injury, scored a couple goals, got a couple assists, still looked hungry and, really wanted to fight for the team. But I think it's an amalgamation of things. The long-term injury, the rise of Cole Palmer as well. No one really expected him to be that good when we bought him. We kind of bought him because Nkunku was meant to be that 10 who was injured for so long. We needed some cover there. We got Cole Palmer. He flourished to be the player that he is today. And Nkunku was injured for that long period. So when he come back, it was kind of like, I'm fighting this guy for a position in the 10 role. And this guy's cooking. So I feel like it's a confidence thing. And I think it's a realisation of like, okay, cool. He's got to fight for his place with Cole Palmer. We've played him as a false 9. We've played him in that 10. We've played him on the left-hand side. He's had some okay performances, some good performances on the left-hand side. He's not really played well as a false 9. He has in the Conference League. Of course, he was scoring goals. But again, without sounding too horrible and disrespectful to the Conference League, a player of Nkunku's standard and Chelsea's standard, we are levels above where we should have been playing in that competition in terms of you wouldn't put us in there. We were in there because of a default, right? And some of the teams we were playing, there was a massive disparity. Not to take anything away from the competition or the players scoring goals and getting assists, because again, you can only play who's in front of you. But for a player like with Nkunku, it's not really his standard. But he still played well there. I feel like he used it as a springboard for confidence. But then in the Premier League, his performances just fizzled out. Like I said, in January, there was a lot of talk of him going back to the Bundesliga. I think he really wanted that move, and he didn't get it. So he was kind of stuck at Chelsea thinking, I don't really want to be here. You could see it in the performances. So I know he's going to go. We all know he's going to go. It's just a matter of where. So, Tottenham are showing interest. I think he'd be a good signing for Tottenham. I think he'd do very well. I think he could do very well in the Premier League, to be fair, where it was a Man United that were linked with him, Tottenham, I think Arsenal at this stage were linked with him. I don't think they are anymore. I'd prefer him to go back to the Bundesliga for him and for us because, Chelsea have this long history of previous players scoring against us all the time or doing very well once they leave us. And it just wouldn't be nice to see because Nkunku is a good player. No matter how you try and dress it up, he just is a good player, right? It just hasn't worked for him at Chelsea. So I'd be interested to know what we're going to be happy to take for Nkunku, what we're asking for from these clubs, and what these clubs are willing to offer as well. I don't know whether Tottenham have got a war chest to spend this summer. They definitely need to improve, mate. They had a horrific season in the league. Obviously, they won the Europa League, and congrats for that. But in the league, was it 22 losses? Like, they're going to need a good gutting out and starting again, really, and keeping a few key players. And if Nkunku can be part of that, I think he will thrive in sort of Postecoglou's system. But that's just me. I'd prefer him to go to the Bundesliga. But I would love to know your thoughts about Christopher Nkunku. What are your overall thoughts of him in a Chelsea shirt? How much would you look to get for him? Would you be happy if he went to someone like Spurs or stayed in the Premier League? Or would you prefer him to go to the Bundesliga? Curious to know your thoughts. The Mail Sport have reported that Chelsea are weighing up an approach for Everton star Jarrad Braithwaite, but David Moyes remains determined to keep the England international this summer. This is really good news because we need another centre-back, especially if the board are happy to sell someone like Trevor Chalobah and Benoit Badiashile. So mainly Trevor Chalobah. If he goes, we have to replace him. If Benoit Badiashile goes, we have to replace him. It's as simple as that. If Disasi, we're looking to get him off the books, we need to replace him. So there's a lot of people in my comment sections over the last few days, especially for the transfer news, saying that we don't really need a centre-back. And I'm like, well, if we offload the people that we're looking to generate some more income, we definitely need a centre-back. Because we've got Ashimpong who can play centre-back or right-back in this system. We've got Reece James who can play right-back. But the centre-backs essentially Fofana, Colwell, Badiashile, Trevor Chalobah. Fofana's always injured. If we're looking to sell these two, it leaves Colwell. So we are going to need some an Ashimpong to fill in, but he's not really ready to play every game of every Premier League fixture. Do you know what I mean? He's not quite ready yet. He will definitely get more minutes as the seasons go on, but he's not in that position to slot straight into the starting 11 and play a whole season. He's still incredibly young. But hey, again, I could be proven wrong. He could play a lot of minutes this season, and I hope he does. He's a fantastic player. Someone like Jarrad Braithwaite, homegrown, which always goes in our favour, especially with the amount of transfers and the revolving door windows that we typically seem to have. I think Braithwaite's a solid defender. He's good in the air, good with the ball at his feet. He's physical. He's got Premier League experience. There's a reason why David Moyes wants to keep him. He's an England international. I'd be very interested to know what type of money that they want for someone like Braithwaite. Are they going to do something like, Newcastle with Isak and go, if you want him, 80 million and you can have him. Crystal Palace with Mark Gahey, 80, 90 million, you can have him. I mean, the difference is it depends on contract length. Like Gahey can be available now because I think he's going into his last year of his contract for a lot less. But it could be a similar situation on Everton saying we don't want to get rid of him. He's one of our best defenders. We're going to slap a premium on it, which I kind of understand. But at the same time, I hope Chelsea don't get reeled into it. I hope we don't just overspend for the sake of it. Obviously, you have English tax as well, so that always goes on top. And a club like Chelsea, if we want to play, we typically pay for it. And clubs know that, so they up their price. So I'm just hoping we don't get into this sort of bidding war with Braithwaite. I would love him at Chelsea. I would like Mark Gahey more. To be fair, I'd like both of them because then we have solid reinforcements and a solid centre-back partnership that you can rotate throughout the season, regardless of what happens with Disasi, Benoit Badiashile, and potentially Trevor Chalobah. You've got four centre-backs there of Colwell, Fofana, Braithwaite, Gahey. If Fofana's always injured, you've still got three that are usually pretty available and are pretty robust, good on the ball, can read the game, got good football intelligence, good defenders, good on the ball. Like, they've got Prem experience between them. They're still young. So I think it makes a lot of sense. We've been linked with Braithwaite for a while. The rumours sort of settled down and now they're starting to come back in. So I feel like with Chelsea after a centre-back, Braithwaite makes a lot of sense. But again, there are other centre-backs out there. In a dream world, I'd love for us to go for Bastoni, but I just don't see it happening. It would be silly wages, silly transfer money. And I think, as we've all discussed, the main priority is at 9. We've got Delap, amazing. Are Chelsea going to dip back into the market and go for someone like Gyökeres, who is an open target right now? And I really hope that they do. With Arsenal and even Man United trying to get in on Sesko right now, and they seem to be fully occupied on him. He's an open target. He's one of the best goal scorers in Europe currently, has been for the last few seasons, alongside someone like Victor Osimhen. That's where Chelsea should be aiming a majority of their budget, in my opinion. But they still want a left winger. They're still talking about to Jadon Sancho about if he can reduce his wages to keep him because they want to keep him. That's another big deal. So we need to kind of evenly spread anything that's not the 9, spread the rest of the budget between. So yeah, I wouldn't want to spending absolutely ridiculous money for Braithwaite, but at the same time, I would take him in a heartbeat. But I'm curious to know your thoughts down below. Would you take Jarrad Braithwaite? Do you think that he could be like a 40, 50 million pound signing that comes in and really shores up our centre-back partnership or just our defensive line in general? Or would you completely ignore him and move on to someone like Mark Gahey? Graham Bailey has reported that Wolves are interested in signing Joao Felix from Chelsea this summer. West Ham, Benfica and Real Betis are also in the race. Now, this was a quote or a report from Graham Bailey a little while ago, but there has been a new one from Court Offside. Court Offside have reported that Joao Felix wants to return to Benfica in the summer. The Portuguese player are working on a loan deal from their former player. Now look, like I always say to you, I just react to headlines and have conversations with you guys, discussions down in the comments, and I love it, rather than, saying that this is all factual. It's always a discussion at the end of the day. I don't typically believe a lot of what Court Offside say most of the time, but sometimes they get it nail on the head. And it kind of links up with what Graham Bailey said. I think it was like last month, potentially, end of last month. The likes of Wolves, Benfica, Betis. These clubs will make sense for someone like Joao Felix, who has become, unfortunately, like a European journeyman, where he just plays for everyone for 6 months to 1 year stints. It's wild when you look at his club CV and the transfer fees he's accumulated and that type of thing. This one also makes me sad because I understand that when it comes to Joao Felix's output in GA and stats and stuff, it's not the most glamorous. But the one thing that I always remember as a kid, and I still remember as an adult, is it's remembering the players that excite you and get you on the edge of the seat. Joao Felix, to me, is one of those players. I love watching him play because he'll pick the ball up, take it around 2 or 3. Yeah, his output isn't great. We know that, and you'd like to see him improve on it for someone of his age and the type of clubs that he's played at. But I like watching him play. In transition, I just think he's a frightening player. He's, the little touches, little round the corner passes, the way he can take it round a player. I don't know, there's just something about it I really like. And when we were signing it, when we got him on loan, I was excited. He had a horrible debut. I think his 6 month spell overall was pretty good. Again, his output weren't great. He's like 4 GA over the 6 month spell. But again, he was an exciting player to watch. And he got a lot of pre-assists, if that makes sense, where he was still part of the attack but didn't get the actual numbers which backed him up. So, that can always be a bit twisted, a bit warped when people look at GA. And then when we signed him on a permanent, I was like, this is amazing, man. Like, he's a player for shirt sales. He's also an exciting player to watch. Hopefully he has a good season. And then we loaned him out in January. Now, it looked like Felix was a make-weight for the Conor Gallagher deal. It's pretty much confirmed at this point. So Maresca didn't really want him. He wasn't a signing we wanted to go out and get. He was a player that he received. It was a player he got and was like, here you go, you've got Joao Felix now, make that work. And he was kind of like, okay, Felix is a good player. Let's see if we can make it work. And clearly, Maresca wasn't happy with Felix the way he played in the system. Now, he did play in the 10, he played as a false 9, and he played as a left winger. A bit like Nkunku, just trying to find his best position. And I think he actually played very well. There was an Everton game where it was Joao Felix on the left wing, Cole Palmer in the 10, and that first half, we were so fluid going forward, and we looked so deadly. I was like, this has legs. Like, we could do this. And Joao Felix could put in the defensive work to cover up what he does going forward. We're onto a winner here. And to be fair, over the season that he played, the more minutes he got, he played a lot in the Conference League and obviously wowed people in that because, again, he's a player that, is levels above that type of football, unfortunately. Like I said, not in a disrespectful way to the players and teams in that competition, but he is. He's played for the clubs like Barcelona, etc. He wowed in the Conference League and showcased kind of what he could do. And he just never really got his opportunity. You could see that he was working on his defensive work as well, which was good to see. But we just loaned him out in January, sent him to Milan, scores on his debut, and then you've even got AC Milan saying we don't want to keep him at the end of the season, scores on his last game. And it's kind of almost like a what's next for Joao Felix, because he just seems to be constantly going on loan, bouncing around clubs, whether it's a permanent deal, loans, whatever it is, very short spells. And I just think it's quite sad, really, because he is a very good player. His output doesn't reflect the sort of ability. Like I said, he's a player that excites me when I watch him. So it'd be very interesting to see what happens. I could see him quite easily going back to Benfica, and I think he'd be really happy with a move like that. I could also see him playing in the Premier League for a club like Wolves or Betis. I think all the clubs linked with him make a lot of sense for the type of player Joao Felix is, and he could go into them teams and make a difference. I don't think he's at the point of his career now where he is the main man and the focal point of a huge club. I feel like he can go into those clubs that are still working towards things, still competing in cups and domestic leagues, or trying to climb up the table, and he can really go in there and make an impact. Think of someone like Isco at Betis, right? unbelievable player who's had a very good career, that's gone to a club at the end of his career and is helping Betis, get to their first European final and trying to, push them up the league throughout the season. That type of player Joao Felix can be, and he's still very young. Was he 25, 26? He's still got loads of his career left. So it could be like a rekindling of his form going back to Benfica, where it all started for him. But it'd be very interesting to know if it's a loan deal or whether we're looking to sell him for the 40 million that we paid for him. It'd be very interesting to know. And I want to know your thoughts down below. Are you a fan of Joao Felix? Should we get rid of him? Do you want to keep him? Let me know your thoughts. I'm very, very curious because Joao Felix seems to divide the Chelsea fan base. Mike McGrath has reported that Chelsea will ask Liam Delap to put the Club World Cup ahead of England in another club against country row this summer. This is very interesting, because this is like the first dilemma between Chelsea and their brand new signing that needs to be resolved very quickly. Delap has got his England call up for, Thomas Tuchel has put him in the squad, and I feel like it's thoroughly deserved. When you score 12 goals, yeah, all right, a couple of pens, but overall 12 goals, couple of assists in a team that's been relegated to the Prem in their first season in, I think, in a long time since it's been in the Premier League. He's a great talent. We signed him for £30 million. We wanted to sign a striker for the Club World Cup before it, right? So we had at least one. He is that guy, right? He is the guy that Chelsea have signed. They've got it over the line quickly, and they're like, yep, we signed you. We want you to do your medical on Monday, which is good news. And we want you to be the main number 9 or part of the squad, to be the striker, to spearhead the attack in the Club World Cup. And Delap's like, I've just been called up for England. So, Now, in my opinion, it's a tough call, but I would probably go Club World Cup. And that's not me being biased. It's me on a personal level. I'm not a huge fan of international football. Never really have been. I'll watch it. I'll try and get involved. I just don't feel the connection to it. And when I was growing up and speaking to my dad about it, his generation and one that absolutely love international football. And I like the togetherness of it. When you have people that aren't really football fans will come together for the international games, get part of the spirit. I think it's buzzing. It's usually in the summer as well. It's just good vibes. But I'm not a massive fan of the international football in general. So for me personally, I would always choose club. However, I know how important it can be for these players to get your first England call up. You want to go play for your country. It's like the biggest thing that you can do at professional level. I totally understand that. But I feel like this is the awkward bit about it is we've just signed him. Just signed him for a tournament, and now he's like, yeah, but I want to go play for England because I've got my first call up. Do you know what I mean? Go play with the boys, see what happens. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens. I could see Chelsea trying to not force his hand, but basically say, look, we signed you. We've given you everything you wanted. And what we would like from you is to play the Club World Cup because financially it makes a lot more sense for the club. And, if you make an impression, you play well in that, you become Chelsea's number 9. And then if we do go sign another striker, they've got to come in and compete against you and try and knock you off of your spot for the starting 11, which I think could be a very appetising thing for a player like Delap, who's hungry, wants to play Premier League, Champions League football. He's come to a club like Chelsea, got to make impressions. You've just started. You're knocking people like Nicolas Jackson off his perch as Chelsea's number 9. Essentially, you've got a point to prove. Now, he could go to the internationals, do very, very well there, and then kind of be like, look what I did for England. And again, that's amazing. But just very curious to know what you guys think. What would you choose if you were Liam Delap? Would you choose the Club World Cup or international football? Genuinely curious to know what your thoughts are down below in the comments. I would personally go for club football. I've always been club over internationals, but I do understand and respect that for these players, international football is like the pinnacle of what they try and play for. And lastly, Transfer.com have reported that Manchester United have registered interest in Chelsea striker Nicolas Jackson ahead of the summer transfer window. This move comes as a surprise given Jackson's recent arrival at Stamford Bridge and his mixed first season. United are exploring options to strengthen their attack and view Jackson as a possible fit for their evolving squad. Now again, I'm just reacting to the headlines out there. I'm not saying that this is concrete, but I thought it was very interesting to discuss because Chelsea are heavily in the market this summer for a number 9, potentially 2 strikers this summer. There are a lot of reports suggesting we are going in for 2 strikers. We've just signed Liam Delap. What does this mean for Nicolas Jackson? What does it mean? What would you like to do with Nicolas Jackson? Let me know in the comments down below. For me personally, I still rate Jackson. Yes, he is young, he is developing, and you can see that he's hungry. It means a lot to him. He wants to do the best he can, and he wants to improve. Now, I think he scored like 24 goals in his first 2 seasons at Chelsea. which I don't think is terrible when you think about it. I think what people focus on is the misses that he has. He's missed so many chances. He could have scored hatfuls of goals, and I totally get it. It's so frustrating watching Nicolas Jackson because you don't know what Jackson's going to turn up. However, we do know what he brings to the team. We do know what he brings to the table when he performs. It's the hold-up play, the link-up play. It's dropping deep to pick the ball up, link up with Cole Palmer. Those two have a really good connection, and when they're both cooking, they're almost unplayable. And we saw that the first half of the season. Jackson got to 9 goals very, very quickly and got some assists as well between him and Cole Palmer. It was just frightening to see. So we can see the potential. He's just not consistent enough to do it for an entire season. Now, what is going to be very interesting is this winter going into 2026 is obviously AFCON. So we're going to lose Jackson for around 5 or 6 games, depending on how far Senegal go into the Cup. I think it's about 6 games in overall, right? So it's going to be interesting to see how Chelsea cope without a player like Jackson for that 6-game spell around that time of the season. And historically, Chelsea have had to deal with this with a lot of African players that we've had over the years. That, you know, there was seasons where we lose Drogba, Mikel, and Essien just straight away, like gone. Kalou, Malouda as well sometimes, because I swear, no, Malouda used to stay. We would lose a lot of players around this time, and we'd have to try and see it through in the league, which is a very tough period with all the fixtures, and try and get over it. And the times that we did very well when we lost those players at AFCON, they come back, they're reinforced. We usually went on and won stuff. So it'd be very interesting this time around. Yes, we have Delap. We may be going to get that second striker. But again, for Jackson, what does that mean? I personally feel that he was going to play a lot more minutes on that left-hand side. I feel that he'd be unbelievable on that left-hand side. And in the moments we've seen him play on that left, he has been frightening in terms of his pace, the way he can get past the player, the way there's less of a pressure to finish because he is in a position to either shoot himself or lay it off to or create a chance for another player centrally. So I don't know. I just thought this was interesting to talk about. Jackson is a very divisive person in terms of the Chelsea fan base. You either love him or you hate him. I would not like to see him go. I think he is going to grow into a very good player. Whether it does develop into more of a left-hand sided player or as a number 9, we are soon, yet to see. And I feel like he's going to have a point to prove. Now he has competition with Liam Delap coming in. I feel like we're going to see a different type of Nicolas Jackson because he's going to want to work even harder. The one thing you can't deny about Jackson is how much he wants to be better. He wants to please the fans. He wants to be that guy. You can see it, his body language when he comes off, when he's not played well, when he has played well. He always hungry and wants more. The way he always thinks about the fans. So I think that he's grateful for what the position he's in, and he wants to kind of repay that every chance he's given. So I wouldn't want to see him leave. However, as Chelsea are Chelsea, if the right numbers come in, they would probably sell him. We bought him for 32 million, which is really cheap for a player who has a lot of potential, high ceiling. He's only had 3 seasons in professional football. Who was a left winger that's converted to a 9. He's got a lot of potential, and I feel like there's also a lot of potential for profits. So it's kind of one of those hard rock and a hard place stuff. But I'll be very curious to know your thoughts down below. Would you keep Jackson? Would you sell him? Would you utilise him on the left? Would you persevere with him as a number 9 and have him of competition with Delap? I'm very curious to know your thoughts. And that's all the latest Chelsea news. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on everything that's been reported down below in the comment section. I love having a conversation with you guys. And if you have watched this video all the way to the end, firstly, you're a real one, and I mean that. You're a real one. But secondly, there'll be a thumbnail appears on the screen. So if you are a Chelsea fan who enjoys Chelsea content, make sure to click that thumbnail because you'll enjoy that video too.